Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Beyond the USMLE series. Today is a very special webinar for us because we are partnering with Match a Resident. So we're going to go ahead and just get started. So this is the Beyond USMLE. Our webinar today is going to be IMG Application and Optimization and Strategies for a Match Success. We're going to be up next. So the speakers for today, it's going to be from MOLA. Next, let's go to the next slide, please. So from MOLA, the speakers who are going to be, we are part of the International Health Graduate Committee from MOLA. MOLA stands for Medical Organization for Latino Advancement. Myself, Janet Castano, I'm an MD for Universidad de Antioquia from Colombia. I work right now at pediatrics at University of Indiana, and I live in Indiana. And in MOLA, I'm a co-chair for the IMG committee, and I'm also part of the board of directors of MOLA. Sandra?
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I am Sandra Cordova. I am from Ecuador. I graduated from Universidad Central del Ecuador, and currently I am working at Mayo Clinic as a research fellow. And I am so happy because I was appointed as a co-chair of IMG committee. So happy for that. And thank you for being here. And Sylvia, go next.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Sylvia Valdes-Tapia. I'm originally from Chicago. I went to Loyola University, Chicago for my undergrad and grad school. I currently work as a research and evaluation specialist for a nonprofit, but I am also the intern for MOLA this year. And I work with the Wellness Committee, the IHG Committee, Mentorship and Finance as well. And I will kick it off to Seth to introduce himself.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah, you go ahead. Go ahead, Seth.
Okay, great. Well, hi, everybody. My name is Zeph. I am the managing director for Match a Residents and Residency Experts. And I have been a residency applicant mentor and coach for the last 4 years. I actually have gotten my feet into the residency arena back in 2008. And I'm very excited to share all the knowledge and information that I have that can hopefully help you understand what it takes to match as an IMG this year.
Okay, next. Okay, so for today's, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about very briefly, because I know we want to get into the business of the topics. We're going to talk about what is MOLA. We're going to give a brief introduction and a quick, very overview over the timeline. And then Match a Resident is going to go over in very detail. He's going to talk about checklist, important dates to remember, my ERAS application, personal statement, letters of recommendation, and more. This webinar is very special because we are not just having people from our committee. We opened it up actually to everybody. We're having people from all over the world. We have people from Colombia, from India, from the United States, from Venezuela, from Pakistan. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. So next. The first thing that we wanted to talk about is what is MOLA. So MOLA is a medical organization for Latino advancement. We have our main source it's here at Chicago, but we also have other, it is expanding through the United States. We also have another chapter in Wisconsin. Our mission is that we are a nonprofit organization, association of Hispanic and Latino physicians and health professionals working for career advancement. We are linguistic and cultural competency, personal wellness, and health equity for the good in the entire Hispanic Latino community. So this is a very important mission for us, and especially for the IHG committee, which comes up next. So MOLA especially has these are the pillars for MOLA, and basically we are do education and research. We have a micro-reach program which gives scholarships for medical students, for IHG students who actually want to go on into go profound in their studies. We'll also have the mentorship program. So whoever wants to be a part of that, it's a great way of actually being encouraged to keep on with the journey and just helping each other to go through this process, because we'll, as medical students and IMGs, we know how difficult it is at times to time. So the mentorship program is great for that. Public health, which has been very important, especially through everything that's going on with public health, has been very important as well. The wellness programs takes care of the person, because we're not just physicians, we're not just students, we're also our people, and that takes care of that. We have another chapter that does with advocacy, and the MOLA members community is because we hope that from this webinar also for you guys meeting and knowing that MOLA it's an association that is out there. Well, hopefully we'll get more members, and you'll be a part of all the information and all the programs and different opportunities, networking that MOLA has to offer. So hopefully we'll see a lot of you guys there too as well. Next. So this is the Beyond USMLE series is something that the International Health Graduate is doing. It's a part of a series that goes on for the all year through. We have 4. It's every 3rd month, so hopefully you'll be able to stick around. And basically what we did with Matcha Resident is that one of our the people who were part of the committee as well, she worked very close to Seth. She actually got to match this year. She started at pediatrics. She introduced us to him, and she knew how important the advice that Matcha Resident gave it to her. And now we want to share this with everybody. So that's why we got into this webinar today, and it's an intention from the International Health Graduate Committee, and hopefully anyone who is interested after this to be a part of that, you guys are more than welcome to be a part of that as well. Next.
So important dates that we need to take in mind for this upcoming match season are, as we know, on May ERA's 2021 season ended. On June 9, ERA's 2022 season started. From July to August, it's very important to prepare the CV, asking for LORs or letters of recommendation, and at least to have a draft of a personal statement. September 1st is important because applicants can begin submitting applications to programs. And September is also an important month because we need to prepare for the interview. So just with your friends, coworkers, attendings, whoever you want, you can start preparing for this interview. And on September 29, it's important because residency programs may begin reviewing applications, and MSP. Everything needs to be ready for this date. And now Seth is the best to explain a little bit more about everything for this match season. So thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, everybody, and welcome to everybody who has joined us so far. We're going to be going through a lot of information today, so I'm going to try to be expedient, but make sure that it's informative and helpful. If you have questions that come up throughout the presentation, we encourage you to just drop them in the chat box throughout. At the end of the presentation, I will go through and review some of the questions, try to answer as many as possible. It's best to keep them relevant to the topics that we're talking about today. And we will be announcing winners for our giveaway at the end, but I'm ready to dive in, so let's do it. So we're going to be reviewing the IMG timeline and checklist in a little bit more depth, talking about program research, the MyEris application, personal statements, letters of recommendation, and general tips and information to help make sure that you understand what it takes. All right, so we have our complete timeline and checklist is going to be the first task for us to get through today, including key events, suggested actions, and essential resources for you. So in June, and obviously we're past June now, but this will apply to future years. And if you haven't done these things, you'll still want to start them. So June 24th this year was the date that you could get your ERIS token through the ECFMG, and that allows you to register for the AAMC so that you can fill out the ERIS application. June is also a good time to start seeing how many programs you have available to you to apply to for certain specialties. Some applicants have certain aspects of their application that makes it more difficult to apply to more compatible programs. For example, if you have multiple attempts or a longer time since graduation, you have fewer compatible programs you can apply to. So understanding how many you have in your top specialties early on is very important for planning your letters of recommendation and personal statements. You want to make sure you're taking your USMLEs and get your OETs done as soon as possible. If you apply, you should definitely have step 1 done, and it's much better to have step 2 done as well. If you have an attempt on step 1, it's even more important to have your step 2 CK completed so that they see that you have passed ideally on the first time and with an improved score. Okay, so July and August, we're in the thick of the season right now. As we all know, September is coming up, and it's very important that we are on top of all these very essential tasks. So collecting letters of recommendation, planning who your authors are going to be, starting drafting your personal statements, and working on your MyAris application, taking a professional ARIS photograph, and starting to begin requesting your medical school transcripts, MSPEs, USMLE transcripts, and all the important supporting documents that you're going to need for your ARIS application. Okay, and here's our first quick insider tip for today, which is if you have about 5 or 10 programs that perhaps you have personal connections with, or you've worked with, or that you're just extremely interested in applying to, this is actually a great time to reach out to them early before applications go out. And it's a introduction to yourself, and it allows you, by sending an email or even a letter to this program, to express your interest and detailing why exactly you're so interested in their program, and that you hope to be able to speak with them during the interview season. It's a great way to get your foot in the door and get yourself noticed before they even see your application. So again, you don't want to do this to every program you're applying to, but pick maybe your top 5 to 10 or 15 programs and introduce yourself before applications go out. Another tip is to watch the IMG success stories and understand what it takes for matched IMGs and what the process was, and all the little things that they did to make sure that they were maximizing their chances. All right, so we're approaching August 15th, and this is just a suggested deadline for you to have all your materials ready before ARIS opens up on September 1st. So that doesn't mean you need to have them by August 15th. You still have all the way through September essentially to get everything together and then applying to programs. But it's a good goal to get done early because things take time. I'm sure if people are requesting letters of recommendation that they realize the authors don't get the letter to them right away. They need a lot of help uploading it. So there's all sorts of things that can happen. And completing your MyAris application definitely takes time. For people who have a lot of CV experiences, work, volunteer, and research experiences, you need time to document them, detail them. Maybe you don't remember who your supervisor was for those, so you need to look it up. So it does take time, so do it early if possible. And we've already mentioned the personal statements. And if you haven't already, begin applying to the ECFMG clinical pathways and planning your OETs. Now, if you are working on your MyAris application and personal statements, Residency Experts does provide very helpful editing and optimization, as well as feedback and review for all the most critical written sections. And Residency Experts is part of Match a Resident, and for which I'm the director of both of those services. So if you do feel like your application needs editing, which is a very important aspect of the overall application, is to make it as professional and perfected as possible, definitely reach out to us and we'd be glad to help. Now that we get to September, September 1st is the first day that you can certify your ARIS application, but there is no point to certifying your ARIS application on September 1st. The most important thing is that you do not certify it until you're 100% sure that it is absolutely ready and flawless. So you have September 1st through the end of September 28th to make sure that that's the case before you certify your application, because it gets locked in for the entire year. So if you only included one experience in your application and you had 15 more, but you accidentally certified it, you cannot change that. The only thing you can change is your personal information. So again, make sure you wait until you're absolutely sure it's flawless and then certify your application. And September 15th is the NRMP registration opening. And again, just verify that your program choices are compatible. There are multiple ways to do this. Match a Resident does provide customized lists, which give you all the most compatible programs, as well as compatibility scores. We show you which programs have interviewed candidates similar to you in the past. And we suggest using a customized list to help you get a basis for your research. And then feel free to use other resources and databases. Residency Explorer is a very powerful tool that shows a lot of extra data, and you can input some of that data into your notes in your customized list and then make the best choices for you. So from September 1st through the 28th is the chance where you get to finalize your application choices and submit your applications. And then on September 29th, it's the big day. Applications are released and programs can begin reviewing them. And believe it or not, there will be interview invitations that go out on September 29th, but don't worry, the vast majority of them are sent in October, November, December. And last year, people were getting interview invitations in January and February, believe it or not. So it was a very interesting year, and it will be interesting to see how the timeline flows this year as well. So another tool found in Match a Resident, which is totally free to use, is the interview manager. So you can schedule your interviews in the interview manager and keep them all in one place. It's very helpful, leave extra notes, and just make sure that it's organized and that you're able to get as many interviews as possible. And once it actually comes down to performing well during an interview, as was mentioned earlier, there's no better way than to practice. And we also have interview prep services available through Match a Resident, which include learning through written lessons and video lessons, as well as weekly group discussions, practicing. So you can actually record your interview answers online, and that will help gauge your performance. You can even send your recorded answers to friends or peers to review, so you get further insight into the strength of your answers. And again, interviews are going to be mostly virtual. There are going to be some in-person interviews this year, but a lot of it will be virtual. So it's very important to practice in a virtual setting, practicing with a camera, practicing with lighting, with a neutral background or a professional background of some sort. And this also includes AI feedback, and then submitting your answers to a residency coaching expert that will give you feedback on your interview performance. So that is just another helpful tool that is available through registered members of Match a Resident. And let's keep going forward with the timeline. So November through January, again, this is going to be mostly interview season. Some people will be applying to more programs. If you haven't heard back from some of your top choices, feel free to send a follow-up email, follow-up letters, even a phone call. It's not necessarily the best option, but maybe for your top 3 or 5 programs. And if you haven't heard back from them, calling the program coordinator and just having a conversation with them and checking in could actually be a way to get yourself noticed. This is also a good time. If you have not been receiving interviews, you need to be utilizing your residency network. Talk to everybody you know who's in the medical field, who has any sort of connection with a residency program in the specialty you're applying to. And you'd be surprised that you will be able to get more interviews from those connections. And they might be the interviews you need in order to get matched. So never, ever be afraid to utilize and leverage your medical residency network. It's so important and can be very helpful, especially if you're applying with red flags in your application and other issues that might be holding you back. For all those interviews that you have received and that you've done an amazing job for, make sure you send thank you letters. And of course, make sure you're completing your application for the pathways for ECFMG certification by December 15th. And if you haven't already register with the NRMP. The deadline is January 31st in order to avoid a $50 late fee. So who wants that? Make sure you do it before then and consider applying to more programs in November and December if you didn't apply to enough in the beginning. All right, and February 2022, the NRMP and rank order. So basically on February 1st, the rank order list opens up and you need to be sure that you're registered with the NRMP by the rank order list deadline in order to be eligible for SOAP. And then you can create and change a rank order list up through the deadline. And there's also another very helpful free tool via Match a Resident, which is called Rank Assist. And it's a proprietary survey that helps you analyze and assess the strength of each program that you interviewed at, giving you a numerical score from 1 to 10. And it just provides further insights into maybe what your rank order list could look like, depending on your interview performance and your preferences for all the programs. And then further into March, we get into the most exciting part of the season, which is of course the match week. But before then, again, you need to make sure you're registered with the NRMP and you must be ECFMG certification eligible by the week before match week in order to qualify for the post-match SOAP. And if it does come down to the post-match SOAP, we do have additional resources that can be helpful. You will learn your match status on Monday of match week, and you will either be matched, partially matched, or unmatched. And partially matched means you matched into either only preliminary or only an advanced position, but you have not gotten your full training scheduled. So you would have to participate in the post-match, or you have the option to participate in the post-match at that point. And electronic residency is a branch of Match Resident, which does help with post-match applications. And we do have some very helpful videos that are linked in this presentation, which we will be sharing afterwards. So all the links and all the videos and resources will be available to everybody. And if you're matched, congratulations. I hope the vast majority of everybody here is going to be matched very soon. It's time to share your story with the IMG community and celebrate your success. We do have IMG success story takeovers, story interviews on YouTube. And again, the IMG success stories that have already been published are actually a fantastic resource so that you can hear and be inspired from matched IMGs. So definitely check those out and definitely reach out to us when you get matched in March. Okay, so let's do a quick recap before we move on to the next topic. Make sure you're scheduling and taking your USMLEs and OETs as early on in the season as possible. Plan for strong US-based letters of recommendation and start coordinating with your LOR authors. Craft a very strong medical residency personal statement and begin filling out the MyAris application early and understand all the supporting documents for your application. And make sure that your program research is efficient and accurate. All right, so let's dive in a little bit to the MyAris application. So some of the top tips for the ARIS experiences section is to write your experiences in resume style format. So typically that means omitting I and just using action verbs to start most of the sentences. Now, although this isn't a requirement, it's a very professional way to write your resume. And be as detailed as possible. The character limit for the experiences section is 1,020 characters, which is a significant paragraph's worth of content. So if you had a 3-year work experience and you put one sentence, it's not going to look very good to programs that you were not able to provide any amount of meaningful detail to your experiences. So sometimes people make the mistake of trying to put all their work experiences in their personal statement and describe them in detail there. But the ARIS application is really where you want to be explaining your CV experiences in the most detail as possible. There's no sense of being redundant or over-explaining, but the more precise information you can give, the better. And again, on that same note, don't just copy and paste one experience from another. Each experience should have individual details and information associated with it. And there's also no need to repeat the information that's found in the details of the experience in the description. And just keep in mind, all clinical medical training should be considered a work experience, even if it was unpaid or even if you paid to get that experience. Let's go over just a few more of these. So to ensure the section is edited to perfection, you really need to be reviewing it multiple times, have other people review your ARIS application, or go with a service that is specializing in editing applications. And it's really best to include experiences mostly from medical school and beyond. Not to say that you can't include undergrad or undergrad experiences, but definitely not high school unless it was something unbelievably amazing or extremely relevant to what you're doing right now. But most experiences should be from medical school and beyond. And make sure they're relevant. They don't necessarily have to be geared towards medicine, but if you had a work experience that was very unrelated to medicine, it doesn't put you in a good light. There's no sense of including it. Just make sure your experiences are making you a stronger candidate. And make sure your experiences are formal. So some people try to put volunteer experiences that are just not volunteer experiences. So caring for a family member is not a volunteer experience. Walking your neighbor's dog is not a volunteer experience. Volunteer experience means you're working with an official organization or you have started an official organization of some formal capacity. So just keep that in mind. This is a professional application, and of course, all the content should be professional and appropriate. All right, now let's go through some of the best things to avoid. So again, don't certify your ARIS application early. We've already talked about that. Don't do it. It gets locked in for the entire year. Make sure that you are 100% positive it's ready to go before you certify. You can update your personal information throughout the application cycle. Make sure that your email address is professional. It should be your first name and last name at a major provider. And make sure you have a US-based phone number. So for those people who are applying internationally, you need to set up a forwarding number so that people can call you at a US number. Because a residency program, honestly, is probably not going to take the time to call an international number if for some reason they need to call you. So make sure you have a US-based phone number set up, and also make sure that you're writing your ARIS application in a separate document that's going to help you edit it better. You can share it with others to help provide editing and feedback. So it's important not to just fill everything out in ARIS right away and then submit it. All right, of course, don't wait till the last minute. Again, don't water down your application with extraneous information. Remember to have English as a language fluency. And if it's not a language fluency, you probably need to work on it before applying to residency. And your hobby section is actually a very, very, very important section of the ARIS application. And it's one that comes up time and time again in interviews, is people having their hobbies section referenced during interviews. So it's actually extremely important. Don't just write a list of 5 things that you like to do and think that's good enough. It's not. This is another chance to show who you are as a person to programs. And if you want to watch some very informative videos about the hobby section, you can learn how to correctly stand out in the hobby section. And you can also learn about what the 2 most generic hobbies are to avoid in the My ARIS application. Does anybody know what the 2 most generic hobbies are? And it's not to say that these aren't good hobbies. It's just that it's better to stand apart rather than to sound like everybody else. So check those out if you have the time. And I'm now going to briefly go through an example of a great hobby section. You'll notice that it's actually written out in a paragraph. So backpacking is an activity that has always brought me pleasure and joy. Spending long periods of time in the wilderness and away from technology sows seeds of deep peace within me. Plus, I feel even more grateful for society and technology when I'm back. I also work in an urban garden designed for youth mentorship. As an avid gardener myself, it brings me great satisfaction to help share such knowledge and skills with the upcoming generation, especially for those who are at risk of food insecurity. So make it personable, make it detailed, explain each hobby a little bit more, and avoid a list if possible. Okay, let's go through a few more tips to avoid. So make sure you're including all your medical school transcripts. Make sure your experiences are ordered by the correct work, research, or volunteer experience. Don't jumble those up if possible. And your reasons for leaving should actually be very concrete. Don't make it vague and don't leave it blank. And make sure that you're putting all your red flags in the licensure section into a positive and constructive way, and make sure you're taking responsibility for everything that's in your application, no matter what. And of course, make sure your publications are accurately detailed, whether that's the authorship or the date of publication. Just make sure it's all very accurate and input correctly. And then, of course, the last thing is programs want to have a positive impression of you, but they don't want to feel that anybody is arrogant or overly confident in who they are. So just be proud of what you've done, but in a humble way. All right, so let's go through some quick tips for the ARIS application before we move on to the next section. So what counts as previous training experience? Because there's work, research, and volunteer experiences, and then there's previous training. And that is actually only for those who have completed residency or fellowship in the United States. So if you've done a residency or fellowship program outside of the US, that does not count as previous training. It's actually a work experience. And for the question, was your medical education training extended or interrupted? Keep in mind, this is only for your medical school education. If you had gaps after graduation, those are better off explained in the personal statements. And when and why to include medical school clerkships in the ARIS application. So it's not necessary to include these, especially for those who have a detailed MSPE, because all of your clerkships should be in your MSPE with detailed information. So if you have not been able to get your MSPE, then including medical school clerkships in your ARIS application could be more advantageous in that case. Or if you don't have any other work, research, or volunteer experiences, you're going to want something in that section. So your clerkships could be a good thing to put in there, especially the ones related to the specialty or specialties that you're going to be applying to. And keep in mind, the ARIS application also is the common application, meaning it goes to every single program you apply to, regardless of the specialty. So don't try to make it too specialty specific, especially if you're applying to multiple specialties. All right, and for the ARIS photograph, make sure that this is a professional photograph. It is very important that the first impression programs have of you is one of clarity and professionalism. Make sure it meets the size requirements, or else you're not going to be able to upload it. And let's go through a quick 2 examples of some ARIS photographs. So this is a great example of a horrific ARIS photograph, which I have proudly demonstrated for everybody. It's a selfie. Don't take a selfie. The background is plain, but it's not professional looking. There's bad lighting. There's excess shadows everywhere. It does not include my full shoulders. I have a negative attitude. I'm not smiling. And if you don't want to smile, you should at least have a somewhat positive demeanor for your photograph. I have a tired, uninterested, and slovenly appearance, and the file size is much too large. So don't take selfies and don't take unprofessional photographs. Here's an example of a great ARIS photograph. It's a professional headshot, professional attire. There's professional lighting and a background, a very neat presentation, genuine smile and positive attitude. It includes the head and shoulders, and the photo and file size meet all the requirements. So don't use your old passport photograph. Don't take a selfie in bad lighting. Spend the $50 or $75 to get a professional headshot. It's very important. All right, so let's move on to our next section. The medical residency personal statement. All right, so what is the purpose of the personal statement? Well, the main purpose is to introduce the personal aspects of who is applying. So you want to make yourself relatable to your reviewers and discuss your strengths as an applicant for that particular specialty. And it's also an opportunity to cover any significant red flags in your candidacy. Now, the personal statement is not to repeat the same information found in your MyAris application. So we don't need to hear a repetition of your CV. Your CV is in your ARIS application. You don't need to repeat everything there in your personal statement. Now, if you've had significant experiences that fit into your overall narrative, it's very appropriate to include those in the personal statement, but there's no sense in repeating the same exact details, which again should be very sufficient in the ARIS application in the personal statements. We don't need to go unnecessarily into our personal lives. So it's okay to be relatable, but talking too much about the trials and tribulations that you've been going through for half the personal statement is not going to leave a good impression. If you do have to talk about personal issues or circumstances, keep them concise, positive, professional, and appropriate. Don't focus on your weaknesses or doubts. You'd be surprised at how many personal statements come off with a sense of doubt of oneself. The first paragraph might even be talking about how I might not be the best candidate for these and these reasons, but I'm such a hard worker and I'm so determined. But you've already told the program that you're not the best candidate in the first few sentences. So make sure that everything is putting yourself in the best light, and don't focus too much on areas of weakness that you perceive in yourself. And then don't focus too much on topics outside of your pursuit of residency. Only include them if they're relevant to the topic of the essay, which is why you are qualified as a candidate. Now, these are 4 key aspects every residency personal statement should have. So why are you pursuing the specific specialty that you are applying for? What qualities and experiences do you have as an applicant that would make you an ideal candidate for that specific specialty? And what are you hoping to give to a residency program? And what are you hoping to get from a residency program? And then what are your future visions and goals, your 5-year, 10-year goals? What are you hoping to contribute to medicine in the long term? So these 4 things are going to be very critical for every comprehensive residency personal statement, and they should ideally be included in every one. Some common pitfalls is if you failed to make your personal statement specialty specific, don't apply to family medicine and internal medicine with the same personal statement. It needs to be 100% geared towards each specialty that you're applying to. Again, don't be arrogant or overconfident. Negativity should be avoided if at all possible, whether that's towards yourself or towards others. It's very important that you are coming off as a very respectful, approachable, considerate, and professional person. And of course, avoid anything that would violate HIPAA. That should be a no-brainer. Let's go over a few keys to success. So highlighting your purpose and passion through concrete examples. I always tell people, show, don't tell, ironically. By showing people why you're a team player, rather than saying, I'm a team player and always have been a team player, you need to show them through examples. Keep it short. It should not go over 1 page. Programs are reading hundreds of these every single year. So shooting for about 700 words is a very good benchmark. 600, 800 maximum is a good window to work from. Focus on the positive, and of course, make sure your statement is specialty specific and relevant to the types of programs that you're going to be applying to. All right, so that is the personal statement in a nutshell, and let's dive into letters of recommendation. Now, letters of recommendation are consistently rated as one of the absolute most important factors of a residency application, and even more so, specialty specific letters of recommendation are extremely valuable to every single applicant. 84% of program directors cited the LORs as an important interview invitation factor with an importance value of 4.3 out of 5. And this is year after year after year. It's one of the most important and highly rated metrics for interview invitations. And it also has a strong effect on ranking applicants. And although letters of recommendation can tend to sound generic, it's actually very important that they do come off as personalized, that the author knows you, and that they are recommending you for that specific specialty. And for your ARIS letters of recommendation, they serve several key functions in the application, which is to demonstrate and integrate experiences found elsewhere in your application. So having LORs from the experiences found in your CV is very important. Demonstrating good rapport with multiple physicians, showcasing your work ethic, commitment, and contributions to medicine, exemplifying your personal characteristics, academic performance, and your overall involvement as a applicant as well. And again, it's to help reinforce and integrate aspects of your candidacy, which are found in the ARIS application, in your MSPE, in your personal statements, and elsewhere. But one quick tip is that if you have a family medicine physician writing you a letter of recommendation for family medicine, but you can't, and you're applying for multiple specialties, but you don't have enough LOR authors, you can actually ask your LOR author to give you two versions of the LOR. One which is recommending you for family medicine specifically, and one that could be either a general letter of recommendation or even including the fact that you're applying for internal medicine, for example. So they could, in their last few sentences, say something to the effect of, I know they're applying to internal medicine, and as a family medicine physician, I understand the overlap in the work and would fully recommend them for an internal medicine position. So that way you're not applying to programs with a letter of recommendation recommending you for a different specialty. It's a huge red flag. So there are some resources here for how to obtain the best letters of recommendation, as well as the AAMC LOR portal, which has a lot of information on how to actually go about uploading LORs. So who should write your letters of recommendation? Generally speaking, they should be practicing in the specialty for which you are applying. They should be an equal or higher rank status of yourself. So ideally, they would be a higher rank than you, attendings, advisors, managers, and the best come from medical professionals, meaning physicians, researchers, public health advocates, people that you've worked with on a one-on-one basis as much as possible. And again, the best letters are specialty specific, coming from high-ranked individuals and recent. Within 1 year is best, and we say 2 years maximum. LOR authors should not be peers, family or friends, those who don't know you, or LORs that have errors in spelling, grammar, syntax. It's poorly written. It's very important that the LORs are well written as well. All right. So we have some additional letter of recommendation resources that you will have access to, which is a complete residency letter of recommendation guide, which also includes obtaining the best letters of recommendation and even a guide for writing residency letters of recommendation. And that could be shared with LOR authors, or the reality is that many applicants are asked to write their own letters of recommendation. So it's extremely difficult to do that for yourself in a meaningful way. So these guides should help if that is the case for you. So we're just going to quickly review some of the letter of recommendation protocols. So the length should really just be 1 page, ideally about 400 to 500 words, which includes room for the signature at the bottom and the official institution letterhead at the top. And again, letterhead at the top, the dates should be within 1 or 2 years maximum. Specialty specific, it's US based, and the origin of the experience is well detailed. So how does this person know you? In what settings did you work together? And what are their qualifications as an author? So again, what is the relationship? And what characteristics have they shared about you as an applicant? And many times they should be helping highlight and integrate and reinforce the 6 ACGME core competencies. It should also come off as genuine without being excessive or boastful or hyperbolic. So especially for those who are writing their own letters of recommendation, it can almost be easy to go overboard with praise. So it's important to be concise and realistic with the amount of praise that we're giving. It should not really go into too much detail about weaknesses, but rather show growth or learning through the experience. And again, it should be well edited. Of course, thanking your LOR authors is very professional and appropriate and something that you would want to do. And keep in mind that these people are part of your residency network now. So they don't just drop off the face of the earth, hopefully, when they finish writing your letter of recommendation. They can be a part of the people who can mentor you, who can help provide insight into potential opportunities or get you interviews. So make sure that you keep a positive relationship with your LOR authors. And this starts from, in US medical schools, this starts from MS3, or whenever you start clinical rotations, you need to be developing relationships with your attendings so that you can get strong letters of recommendation, and they will be personal. They will know you and they will want to support you beyond just the run-of-the-mill request for an LOR. All right, so we're going to do a quick review before we dive into some more questions and getting a little bit of personal insight into maybe some people's experiences and specific topics that they would like to cover. So keep those questions coming in the chat box if you have them. Be happy to answer as many of those as possible. And yeah, so let's dive into our review. So again, this is for everybody, whether you're starting this year or next year or 2 years from now. Start early. And that means educating yourself about the process and understanding all the steps you're going to need to take in order to get to a match. So start early, educate yourself, learn about all the supporting documents, watch the IMG success stories to understand the trajectory from medical school through match, and make sure that you have a clear picture of what it will take for you. Again, research the application process. It can be very overwhelming and confusing. So the more you know, the earlier on, the more prepared you're going to be during the actual application process. If you haven't already, develop a plan of action. Work with people in your network, work with your peers, and work with your mentors to help develop a plan of action for you. If you have specific red flags or obstacles in your application, you need to be realistic about what it will take to overcome those obstacles. So if you've been out of medicine, or if you have not been, you graduated 5 or 10 years ago and you haven't been clinically active in the last year or two, applying straight to residency might not be as successful as getting hands-on clinical rotations first, updating your letters of recommendation, getting a stronger ARIS application because of those experiences, building your residency network through those experiences, helping you overcome the gap in medical school graduation as well as the gap in clinical experience. It'll be very helpful, much better than just diving in and applying to a few programs and hoping you succeed. Of course, if you haven't already, start your personal statement as soon as possible. Have enough time to have other people read over it, get revisions. If you feel like you would benefit from professional editing and optimization, there are options available, and that's something we would be more than happy to help with as well. And consider how you're going to obtain the best LORs. Again, LORs are extremely important. They need to be either specialty specific or general letters of recommendation. Again, don't apply with a letter of recommendation suggesting you to a different specialty than the one you're applying to. You're basically cutting your foot off before you even get in the door, and nobody wants to do that. So again, check out these guides to help with LORs and start researching compatible programs early on in the season. So again, you understand about how many programs you have in each specialty and what the best programs for you might be. We are offering a 15% discount through Match a Resident for the participants of this event with the code MOLA15. So make sure you utilize that if you do decide to look for customized residency list options. And begin the MyAris application soon after it opens. So if you haven't started already, now is a great time to begin filling out your information, maybe not directly into ARIS, but start documenting your experiences and looking through the application and knowing any areas that you're going to have to fill in. Of course, you're going to want to make sure it's ready and you've applied to programs before the 29th. If necessary, and this isn't needed for everybody, but many people might have English as a second language, or they're not the strongest writers or editors, using professional editing and optimization, as well as feedback and review, can be extremely helpful. We do offer that through Residency Experts, which is part of Match Your Resident as well. And we are offering a 10% rebate using the code MOLA 10 for Residency Experts. And that's where we provide editing and optimization for all the most important parts of the ARIS application, including personal statements, MyAris, and LORs, as well as general letters of communication with programs. Now, finally, make sure your application is submitted completely, it's on time, and it's accurate, and it's submitted according to program requirements. So pay attention to letter of recommendation requirements, which are available through Match Your Resident customized lists. And for those who are going to be submitting applications for the supplemental ARIS application, make sure you're filling that out and submitting it on time as well. And if you're not familiar with these resources yet, we do have some top IMG resources that are very helpful. And we have an educational YouTube channel where we're posting multiple new videos a week to help you understand residency, IMG experience, and matching medical school and beyond. We have a blog that has an educational resource for almost every topic we could possibly think of regarding residency. So definitely check out the Match Your Resident blog. We have a motivational and empowering Instagram page to help keep you up to date with what's happening in the IMG community and all the experiences from people like our Match Your Resident ambassadors who are doing lives and takeovers and interviews. So definitely check the Instagram out. And we also have an IMG Residency Match 2021 and 2022 Facebook group where, again, there's even more resources and community. So we definitely encourage you to look those up and join us there. And that is everything for now. I know we ran through a lot of information. I was trying to keep it relatively condensed. I know it looks like we're getting a lot of questions in the chat box, so should be able to hopefully answer some of those for everybody. So I'm gonna pull up the chat box and start seeing.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Steph. Thank you.
Yeah.
So just for a quick reminder to everyone, this presentation is going to be posted on the MOLA's YouTube channel. I'm sure Steph is going to share as well in Match Your Resident's YouTube channel, as he's mentioned. So it's a lot of information. A lot of you must have been taking notes, but don't know, we are going to share it. So all the information is going to be there for you guys, so you can review it over and over again, because it is important in each step of the way to be guided, and especially with the resources that Seth share with us as well. So if you want, we could start telling you the questions so that you don't have to look through the chat. What do you think about that?
Sure, that works for me. Okay.
So one of the questions says, if we are currently working as a research fellow since 2 years, should that information come under work experience or research experience?
That is a very good question. So that would be, if you're actively working as a researcher, that would be a research experience.
Okay. Sandra and Sylvia, if you guys want to help me out. Another question, if an abstract is presented orally and published in a journal, does it count twice?
So there are multiple sections of the ARIS application, and you would be able to put them in the oral presentations and abstracts. So you can actually put those in both places in that case.
Okay. One quick thing that we want to share as well is that the person who we said that actually used the services for Match a Resident and who is very dear for us in MOLA, which is Dr. Shohani Salazar, who match and is a resident, pediatric resident, is here with us as well in the webinar. She's been answering a lot of questions. Her story, IMG story, is in the Match a Resident YouTube channel as well. She's been inspiring for all of us in MOLA and even outside of that. So please make sure that you look at the story, you follow her as well in Instagram, and follow us as we're gonna give you, MOLA is also has a YouTube channel, Twitter, has Instagram. So it is very good. And those kind of things, as Seth said, this kind of networking and medical, getting to know people like you on the IMG path and the medical student, but even physicians, attendees, and doing this kind of broadening your network is very good when you want to come to to a successful match. So this kind of organizations help you as well as that. So just wanted to give that quick hint on that as well. Another thing, so another question says, I've watched it and, oh, hold on a second. So while explaining work experience in CV, how to avoid repetition, because the work is similar, like history taken, examinations, and procedures done.
Mm-hmm.
So how to avoid repetition?
That's a great question. And the idea is you can include those concepts in each of those work experience. Absolutely. Don't copy and paste what you put in one experience to the next experience to the next experience. You can rewrite. I mean, you can literally change the sentence structure to make it sound slightly different, and then incorporate that with adding specific details. Because if it was in different specialties or different environments, those are additional pieces of information that can help you make each experience stand apart. Additionally, you can reflect on your experiences in the ERIS application. It doesn't have to be so cut and dry where it's only what did you do, but what did you learn? How did you grow as a physician through this experience? And that will help make each experience even more unique and stand apart from one another. So it's definitely okay to have similar information, especially when you do have multiple similar experiences, but try to make them stand apart from one another by including more detail, and again, avoiding just copying and pasting the information.
Thank you. It says, is it a specialty specific, not a very great letter of recommendation, better than a non-specific specialty outstanding letter of recommendation? Let me say it again. Is it a specialty specific, but not a very good letter of recommendation, better than a non-specialty specific, but an outstanding letter of recommendation?
So there are definitely multiple aspects of that question that you're going to want to consider. And the first thing is asking, why is the letter not good? Is it because it's poorly written and could be edited? Or is it that it's just not a very strong letter in general and it doesn't present you in a good light? So basically what my answer would be is go for using the stronger, not specific letter if you have other specialty specific letters that you can apply with. So if you have 2 specialty specific letters and you're deciding on your 3rd letter and you want to use the general one or the weak specialty specific one, go with the general one. Having 2 specialty specific letters of recommendation is plenty. You don't need all 3 of them to be specialty specific, but a minimum of 1, ideally about 2, and then having a general letter is actually helpful as well. So there's no clear cut answer necessarily, especially if you have access to the letters, you're going to have to make that decision on your own. But you do want to weigh those letters against what other letters of recommendation you have and you're sure that you're applying with in order to make your decision.
Okay, we have a couple of questions here asking if being an old graduate is a red flag and how to overcome or how to talk about it on a personal statement that could actually be turned into something not as bad, probably.
Yeah, so there are many people who apply and match into residency after multiple years, sometimes many years, since graduation of medical school. And there are multiple aspects of that. The first thing I'm going to mention before diving into the personal statement is that you need to apply to programs that consider applicants past a certain year. So paying attention to minimum requirements and cutoff time since graduation is very important. And another note on top of that is for anybody who has red flags, whether it's attempts, long time since graduation, other issues, you need to plan to apply to more programs. So instead of just, 100 programs is a good average for the recent medical IMG graduate, you need to be thinking more about 150, 200, 250 sometimes, because it's a percentage game. And your interview percentage is going to be lower with the more time you have from graduation and other issues. So keep those things in mind. Now, in terms of the personal statement, basically, the personal statement should be giving a story and a narrative of who you are, what your trajectory has been, and why you're qualified right now to start residency. So if you don't have recent clinical experience and you're an older graduate, then it's going to be hard to convince a program why you're an ideal candidate right now. So I would say that you need to make sure you're getting recent clinical experience if you don't have that already. Now, if you do have that recent clinical experience, incorporating that into your personal statements and what you had been doing before that, and why all these experiences have helped you develop and grow and evolve as an individual and as a future physician, and how it actually all has been beneficial to you in your journey and your trajectory is very important. We don't want to dwell on maybe something happened where you couldn't get into residency, or you had to take time off because you had to care for children and things like that. It's definitely okay to share those things and put them into context, but never make it seem like that is a negative aspect of your experience. It should all be put into a light where you're grateful for that experience, no matter what it was, and how you've grown from it, and how you can actually see it all fitting into your individual life and your trajectory as a resident, hopefully.
Somebody else is asking, does work experience in a different specialty help?
Does work? Yeah, absolutely. So, if you're applying to one specialty and you have work experience in multiple other specialties, there's absolutely no reason not to include that in your ARIS application. More clinical experience, the better. And that's why I mentioned that the My ARIS application is the common application. It's going to be given to every program, regardless of specialty. So that's why you don't put any specialty specific language in the ARIS application regarding your intentions to apply to a specific specialty. But having work experiences across multiple specialties is very common, for one thing, and it's helpful. I don't see any reason why not including it would be more advantageous.
Okay. Can somebody be certified My ARIS application after September 28th?
Yes. So you can certify your ARIS application throughout the season. So some people don't even start applying until November or December. And not that that's a great idea, but it is possible to certify. You can't certify before September 1st. But as far as I know, you can definitely certify after September 28th.
Okay. What if the ACFMG certification comes in mid-September? Would that affect the application process, or even after that?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. Many programs have different perspectives on ECFMG certification requirements. So if you were to have your certification in mid-September, you're in fine condition. There's no reason why that would negatively affect your application, because you're applying with certification at the time of application. Now, there are a certain number of programs, I would say anywhere from 20 to 25%, maybe a little bit more, of programs that state they require ECFMG certification at the time of application. So that means that if you apply to that program without being certified on September 28th, they might not consider your application, or they might not consider your application until you're certified. And if they've already looked at it and they've already discarded you because you're not certified, then there's a risk of missing out your opportunity for being considered by that program. So essentially, you want to make sure you're ECFMG certified as early on in the season. And if it's a concern, you can find those programs which don't require ECFMG certification at the time of application. And luckily, that's something that we do incorporate in customized lists through Match a Resident. We have a filter where you can hide the programs that require ECFMG certification at the time of application. So that could be helpful for people who don't have it and want to refine their application choices to those who only prefer or don't require it at the time of application.
When you talked about reaching out to programs, would you recommend sending the email directly to the program director, to the PC, or to both?
So generally speaking, it's safer to direct it to the program coordinator and possibly CC the program director. If you know the program directors specifically as an individual, you're more than welcome to send them an email. However, if you only send it to the program director, they're very busy and it might not be paid attention to as much as to the program coordinator who's going through and reading most of those emails. So you could even just direct it to both those people. You could send it to the coordinator and the PD. You don't even have to use the CC. So that way it just goes to both of them.
Okay.
But to be honest, there's not a clear-cut answer for that one because it just depends on the program and depends on the program director. And so you might want to experiment with trying different things and seeing what seems to work better for you.
Okay, thank you. Another question: when describing any of the experiences, should it be in complete sentences, paragraphs, bullet points, number, any information to include?
So our recommended format is a resume style paragraph. And what that means is complete sentences, but omitting personal pronouns like I. Instead of saying, I worked at a research institution, it just says, worked at research institution, learned valuable skills related to XYZ. So basically you are omitting the personal pronouns, but writing in complete sentences other than that. We typically don't recommend lists or bullet points. There's no rules for how you need to write your ARIS application other than the fact that you can't use special characters. So we go with what is professional and appropriate and is tried and true. And that's the resume style paragraph. Some people use lists, some people use bullets. At a certain point, it does come down to individual preference. But in terms of the vast majority of applicants doing what has worked in the past and what is typical for this style of paper, which is a resume, is to do a resume style paragraph.
Okay. Should we submit that letter of recommendation with the blind option, the one that when we don't see it? And does it actually play an effect on the programs receiving these letters?
So if you waive your right to see a letter of recommendation, you will not technically get access to it. And it does increase the overall perception of the LOR on average, because the program knows that you just have so much confidence and faith in this person that you don't even need to look at the letter of recommendation to know it's going to serve you well. So that's what waiving the right means. It's like, I completely have confidence in the author to put me in a good light. And so I'm not even going to review it. So I'm going to waive my right to see it. So it is somewhat advantageous to waive your rights when you are confident in your letters.
Okay, yeah, because it says errors prefer letters uploaded directly. So how can we control grammar, or how do we know if it's strong or not?
Unfortunately, there's no way to control that unless you do have access to your letters of recommendation. So sometimes LOR authors will work with the people they're writing them for. And sometimes if you don't waive your letter, you can also have the chance to edit the LORs yourself or have somebody else help edit. So unfortunately, if they are waived and you truly do not have access, you can't control that.
Okay, another question. For the non graduate, should we apply as soon as possible, or should we wait to get more experience?
It's always best to apply when your candidacy is the strongest. So if you're an old graduate with less experience and not much recent experience, it's going to be more advantageous to apply when you have gotten more clinical experience, you have updated letters of recommendation, and you've built your residency network to some degree, than to apply sooner with less experience. It's at a certain point, you might just be wasting your money, and everybody knows that it's very expensive to apply to programs. And especially when you're potentially applying to up to 200 programs as an older IMG, you need to make sure that when you're investing that money and investing that time, that you're doing so when your candidacy is at the strongest. So getting ECFMG certification eligible, getting recent US clinical experience, making sure that your ARIS application is polished, your personal statement is well written, and that you have built a plan for yourself. It's going to be far more effective than just applying because you want to see if it'll work or not.
Okay. Oh, another question. Can a fellow in a prestigious program write a letter of recommendation? A fellow.
The best answer is whether or not you've worked with that person personally, and whether or not they outrank you. So if they are a, if you're a medical student, then, and you've worked with them personally, then that letter of recommendation, and they're supervising you in a clinical capacity, then that letter of recommendation would be appropriate. But if you're working on an equal level with them, they're not your supervisor, then that letter of recommendation no longer has any significant meaning to it.
Mhm. Okay, so some people are asking if your research experience is not on the one specialty that you have that you're going to apply on, or even if you don't have any research experience but you have work experience, could that be an issue?
It's okay to apply to a different specialty even if your research experience is in another specialty. So the ways you overcome that are through specialty specific letters of recommendation and a specialty specific personal statement, and making sure that programs have no doubt as to your interest and desire to be in the specialty that you're applying for. It also depends on how recent the research experience was, because if it was, a longer time ago and now you're applying for a different specialty, it's less significant. But let's say you were doing research in radiology for the last 5 years and now you're applying for anesthesiology, that's going to look a little bit different, and you really are going to have to make sure that you're getting rotations in anesthesiology, that your LORs are all specialty specific from anesthesiologists, and your personal statement explains, I know I've been doing research in this field for the last 5 years, but I actually have found my interest in anesthesiology through this, and this is why I'm an amazing candidate, and this is what I hope to add to the field and to your program. So there are ways to overcome it. It's not a huge deal in most circumstances, but it is different for every individual case.
Okay. And some people here are interested as well. You said taking care of children in being married. So is that considered having children a liability?
Is that considered a liability? So being a parent or, having a family, I'm not really sure what they mean by liability, but like a hindrance in their application, you really just need to demonstrate that you are available and able to be a resident. So if you have, 4 kids that are all under 6 years old and nobody's taking care of them, and both parents are, working, and for some reason the residency program knows all that, it's going to be a lot harder to convince them that you're available to be a resident. But, it's very inappropriate for a residency program to condemn or shame anybody for having a family. And as long as you are able to make the commitment to be there for the residency program, and as well as taking care of your family, you are qualified. And there are many people who do have families who apply for residency and get into residency. So it doesn't always have to be a hindrance. Now, if you took 5 years off of clinical experience to raise your family and you're trying to get back into residency, then that is a different situation, because now you have a 5-year clinical gap and you need to get your foot back in the door, medically speaking, before applying to residency again.
How long would you recommend to actually, in that scenario that I just talked about, like 5 years of being a mom, being a dad, or another kind of role? How long would you say that it's a good experience to actually said, okay, I'm back?
If you have a 5-year clinical gap, I would say a year of hands-on US clinical experience is a realistic minimum for you to be strongly considered after that.
Okay. Another question here, it says YOG is counted from what year and for an IMG?
So for example, people who graduated in 2015 are 6 years from graduation right now. It's basically according to and this is our custom to calculate, it's for the current season or the application release date. So for 2015 grads, they're 6 years from graduation. Even though residency starts in 2022, the residency application cycle starts in 2021. Therefore, it's 6 years.
Okay. Do programs read all completed applications they receive, or the ones that they receive first?
So on September 29th, all applications are going to be sent out to programs at 9 a.m. And anything that was submitted before then will just say September 29th. They'll all have the exact same timestamp, and then they'll be listed by alphabetical order, presumably by last name. And programs are absolutely not going to review every single application they get, because they get anywhere from several hundred to several thousand applications for any program. And they just simply do not have the time to review all those. So they do have filters that they use, and they're able to scan applications for specific criteria that they're looking for in order to then open the application up and review it in further detail before sending the interview invitations.
Okay, another question here says, if I have teeth braces in my ERAS photo, is that bad if they have braces on it?
If you have braces, that's not an issue. It's not anything that reflects negatively on you as an individual, and it's a medical aspect of it. Yeah, it's part of the medical field to have braces, so there's no reason why that should be an issue.
Okay, and a lot of people asked about step 3. Is it good to have it done before applying? Do we have to have the results before that?
Yeah, so step 3 is interesting because it is required if you are applying for an H-1B visa. So if you know you're applying for an H-1B, it's going to be advantageous to have this step 3 done as soon as possible. Now, if you're just an average applicant, taking USMLE step 3 is not 100% necessary for boosting your chances as an applicant. And the reason is it's actually one of the least important factors rated by program directors for inviting people to interviews. So it's actually slightly less important than I think the overall perspective or perception of it is. However, if you do have specific situations like multiple USMLE attempts on a different exam or a long time since graduation of medical school, then having that USMLE step 3 pass can definitely help assuage any concerns a residency program might have about your ability to pass it or your ability to perform in a clinical setting. So for people who have different experiences or different obstacles, step 3 can help smooth the path to some degree. And for the average candidate, it's more important to focus on, getting your high USMLE step 1 and step 2 scores and all the other aspects of the application that we talked about, and only taking step 3 when you're 100% sure that you're going to perform very strongly on it.
Okay. Another question here says, can getting a 1-year non-clinical degree in between graduating med school and applying for residency, is it a red flag?
I would have to clarify what they mean by non-clinical degree. So, some things that we see commonly are like MPHs or getting masters in epidemiology. So those are medically related or health related. I can't say that they're necessarily clinically related. If you were to get a degree in, let's say like it depends. It really depends on the degree and how it fits into your story as an applicant. So you're getting a degree in MPH as a family medicine physician or internist, and you're hoping to really work from the public health aspect of things, can be very helpful. Or, let's say you're getting a master's in research and you focus on radiological research. Those things make sense. They fit into your applicant profile. They can be incorporated into your CV, your personal statements and LORs. And it really just, you want it to feel like a cohesive aspect of your journey. Now, if it's completely unrelated, it doesn't fit into the specialty that you're applying for, then it might make less sense and it might be more of a hindrance. But just the fact of getting a degree does not necessarily make it a bad thing.
So they did explain a little bit more of that. It says it's a master's in global health policy.
Mm-hmm.
What if it's like that, like public health, health management, all that kind of experience? Would that actually be something that will be counted as because it's non-clinical technically?
So it definitely shows that you're doing your best to maintain relevance to the field of medicine. So yeah, a global health policy degree or public health, all of those things show that you're continuing your journey in medicine. And they're actually very helpful as well, because those, again, are great opportunities to network and to learn who can help get you in a residency program or who can help get you a relevant research experience towards the specialty that you're hoping to apply for. So actually going to school can very greatly benefit your overall candidacy because of that networking opportunity, in addition to the continued medical relevance.
Okay, just a quick question about scores. Do you think that the scores in step 1, step 2 were not as good? Can that score on step 3 could actually overcome if the other scores were not as well?
Yeah, so that's another circumstance where taking step 3 might be of help. But the fact is, programs are looking at step 1 and step 2 scores. And it's harder to say that it's going to overcome lower scores because what they're looking at are your initial scores. So I can't say for certainty that every program would actually benefit from seeing that step 3, but for many cases, it might help smooth over the fact that you maybe got lower scores on step 1 and step 2. But what I would say is don't count on it. And
how about now that step 1 is actually changing for next year? How do you think that's going to affect for the people who actually did it before pass and fail? And how is it going to affect for the people who are going to take it afterwards?
Yeah, so what's very interesting is that right now, USMLE transcripts are going to be presented based on when the applicant took the exam. So if you received a 3-digit score, it's going to be in your USMLE transcript, regardless as to whether or not USMLE step 1 is pass fail currently, which is very interesting and doesn't honestly make much sense to us, but that's the way it's planned for right now. So that is a very good point, and that will make things like USMLE step 3 more important. But you also see that they're starting to introduce aspects like the supplemental ARIS application, which is another very different piece of the puzzle for who the candidate is and what their strengths are and how interested they really are in the specific specialties and specific programs. So USMLE step 3 will probably increase slightly in importance when step 1 goes to pass fail, especially for those who have the obstacles or red flags that we've previously discussed.
Another quick question. If a person had to work for a non-medical related job in order to be able to exist and to be able to cover all the expenses that all this match process actually takes, would that actually be mentioned in the personal statement? How could that be immersed in that whole process of matching?
Mm-hmm. Well, it should most likely be in your ERIS work experiences section. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in the personal statements, because what you really want to focus on in the personal statement is why you are qualified to be a resident, not all the hardships you've gone through and the struggles and the financial difficulties to maintain, your existence. And I say that not to be harsh, but the reality is that when a program reads your personal statement, they want to see a medical residency candidate. They don't want to see a person who is, sidetracked with just trying to maintain and, hasn't had time for clinical experiences, things like that. So what I would recommend is only include it if it can be incorporated in a very uplifting and positive, cohesive way with your clinical relevance and your qualities and experiences and characteristics that make you a good candidate. Because that's what programs want to see when they read your personal statement is, wow, this person is a great candidate for this specialty and our program. And that would be the best way to do it.
Okay, so the very last two questions, I know, I'm sorry guys if I passed through it and I didn't cover all, but thank you, Seth, because you've been helping a lot. So the very last questions. One, what about if the person has a beard? Would that count against on the ERIS photo? And two, what if a person helped in a research paper that a physician at the hospital that he was working at asked them to actually help out? Could he put that as a research volunteer if on his behalf, like in his experience?
So I'm going to address the first question, and then I might need to clarify the second one. But people do apply with beards in their ERIS photograph. You just need to make sure that it is well kept and that it looks professional. And that being said, the general rule of thumb is to go for the more conservative look in the ERIS photograph just to be safe. So I would say the majority of males will tend to shave for the ERIS photograph. But that's not to say it's a hard, fast rule and that you should be discriminated against if you have a beard for any reason, whether that's, personal or religious, and just make sure that it is very well kempt and trimmed, and that's probably going to set you up for the best success if you decide to utilize a beard in your ERIS photograph. And for the second question, they were asking if they can combine it as a research volunteer experience.
Let me read it how he put it. He said, if we help to develop a research paper to a physician from AUS hospital, can we write that in the application as a research volunteer?
So if you were working on a research project, whether it was paid or not, you can put that as a research experience. So, if you were a co-author of that paper as a researcher, then it's a research experience. Okay, well, thank you very much, Seth. Thank you. We'll look through this, and if we missed any questions, we either just send you a quick email or even ask Shohani to help us as well. I don't know, Shohani, if you're there, do you want to give a quick words? Do you want to say hi to everybody? Thanks, Seth, for this amazing experience, and this is so much of information. Shoha, are you there?
Yes, hello, everyone. I just want to say thank you, Seth, for all your presentation. It was awesome. And thank you also for the great job that you have been doing as Match Resident. Sorry for the background noise. And I just want to say that, I used last year matchresident.com, and I think it was an excellent tool for me. That was my second time actually applying for the match, and I feel that I couldn't apply like as much as I wanted to 200 programs again, because it was the second time. And actually, I'm very grateful that I found Match Resident and it helped me to narrow my list of programs. And yeah, and I feel that, you know, they give me a different options of applying, because while you are like certain you have so many programs, sometimes you are kind of lost. You don't know how to narrow the list. And they were an excellent source for me, and I'm very grateful that I found them. And now I'm an ambassador of the website because I love it. And you know, just follow us if you have any more questions and we couldn't reply. You know, just ask Seb or ask me. And thank you guys, and awesome job, Janet and Dr. Sandra. Great job, and Seth, thank you so much.
Thank you guys. So what we're gonna
Thank you,
do
guys.
next is that let me
We
see.
have the winners
Yes,
for
so
the giveaway.
Sandra is gonna announce the winner for the giveaways. That's why she was just all there doing all the magic.
Yeah.
So please, Sandra,
I
let
think
us know. Sylvia,
Want me to go ahead and read them out?
yes, please, and please tell everybody how we kind of did the selection of the winners.
Of course, yes. So the selection of the winners was based on people who have been in the webinar, and we distributed between members and non-members, and it was just randomly generated number based on how you registered. So drum roll, we have the winners are, and please excuse me if I mispronounce your name, Rimsha Arif, Rocio Barriga, Adelis Arias, Sarubici Shamat, and Tanya Blazin. So if you can just please email us, and I will drop my email here in the chat. That would be great. So we can go ahead and get you connected with Seth and the next steps.
Great. So thank you
Amazing.
everybody for everything. We're gonna leave the next Seth, if you could do next to the next slide, please. So we're gonna just leave this out. Quick information. Please remember to check MOLA's website, please, and you can always go to the programs and look for IMG program if you want to be a part of it. Please make sure that like I said, this is a great opportunity for networking. This is a great opportunity for mentorship. You meet great people who are doing the same as you, who's sometimes we struggle, sometimes we don't think we're able to do it, but we also have success stories like Shohas and many other members of MOLA who have been successful and who could actually show us that it is able to do it. Sandra, it's going to be a great member this year as well. And we're really great to have people like this and to have this kind of opportunities like we had today with Match Resident. So thank you, Seth, very much for all the information. And I'm sure that we're helping a lot of people with this. And the next slide, please, the very next slide. So here is how to contact us. So here's Sandra's email. This is my email as well. Please make sure that you do review anything. Sandra, do you want to tell, oh, and please follow us. We have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Please check it out.
LinkedIn, yeah.
Yes, LinkedIn. We have
Everything.
great information that we're sharing all the time. And trust me, MOLA is much more than this. It's a lot of things that hopefully you'll be able to share with that and that you'll be able to engage. We have the symposium. Sylvia, do you want to talk about to us about all this as well?
Yes, of course. So this year we have, this is our annual symposium where we have scholars present their research that they've been doing throughout the year. This year it will be virtual, and we will also have like a small in-person event, but it will happen throughout October 8th and 9th. We do have registration. Registration is free for those who are MOLA members, and the MOLA membership is free for all of those who are students or currently in the residency program as well. So I will also go ahead and drop the link. If you can join us, that would be amazing, to showcase all of the amazing work that MOLA scholars have been doing throughout the year.
And for the fees as well, they do have a special fee for IMGs. So please make sure that like hopefully that wouldn't be an issue, and that would give you a huge amount of opportunities for networking. Mentorship program, the mentorship, it starts at October. I believe that it starts again. So please make sure that you get assigned into a mentor, and that person is going to guide you through all the program and through all the process. And it's great. It's a great part of that. So please make sure that you checked us out and that you're here with us. So thank you all. Thank you for behalf of me, of MOLA, from the IMG committee. It was great having you. Great having Steph giving us all this information. Thank you very much once again. Hopefully this is the first partnership that we do with you guys, but it would certainly not be the last one. And thank you all. And Sandra, do you want to say some words?
Yeah, thank you, everybody. It's it's excited for me, and also I wish you the best. I am here to help you. You can contact me and by mail. So thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Bye bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.